When I watched my wife climb into his car at 2:14 in the morning, leaving me alone in a hotel room in a country where she thought I couldn't speak a word of the language, I smiled. Because for the past 6 days, I'd understood every single word she and her tour guide had whispered to each other. Every plan, every lie, every intimate detail of the affair they thought they were hiding from the stupid American husband. Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. Real stories, real justice, no sugarcoating. You know what? I notice many of you watching haven't hit that subscribe button yet. Here's the thing, we drop stories like this every single day. Stories about people who got played, got smart, and got even. If you want to see how these situations really end, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. My name is Nathan, and I'm a 38-year-old software architect. I've built my career on seeing patterns, identifying problems, and executing solutions with precision. Those same skills that made me successful in my field were about to dismantle the carefully constructed lie my wife had been living for months. Let me take you back to where this really started, because the foreign country wasn't the beginning. It was just where everything came to a head. 3 months before our trip, my wife Vanessa started taking an unusual interest in Mediterranean culture. We'd been married for 6 years, and in all that time, she'd never shown particular interest in any specific region or culture. She was a marketing consultant, successful in her own right, and our marriage had always felt like a partnership of equals, or so I thought. She joined a language learning app, started watching cooking shows featuring Mediterranean cuisine, began suggesting we take a trip to Greece. At first, I thought it was wonderful. We both worked demanding jobs, and the idea of a romantic vacation sounded perfect. I'd been planning to suggest something similar myself. What I didn't tell Vanessa, what I'd never mentioned in our entire relationship, was that I'd spent 2 years living in Greece during college. I'd done a study abroad program in Athens, then stayed an additional year working for a tech startup. I was fluent in Greek, completely, utterly fluent. Why hadn't I mentioned it? Honestly, it just never came up. We'd been focused on building our lives in Seattle. Greece was my past, a chapter from my 20s that felt distant. I spoke Greek with my grandmother before she passed, but Vanessa had never met her. There was no deception in my silence, just an absence of relevant opportunity. When Vanessa suggested the trip, I agreed immediately. I even played along when she showed me basic Greek phrases from her app, pretending to learn them alongside her. Something in my gut told me to keep this card close to my chest. Call it instinct. Call it the pattern recognition that made me good at my job. Something felt slightly off. She insisted on planning everything. She'd found this amazing travel agency that specialized in authentic Greek experiences. They would pair us with a local guide who would show us the real Greece, not the tourist traps. His name was Andreas, she said, and he came highly recommended. I ran a background check. Not on Andreas, the tour guide. On Vanessa's phone records. I know that sounds paranoid, but 6 years of marriage gives you a baseline for someone's behavior. Vanessa had changed, subtle things. She angled her phone away when texting. She took calls in the other room. She started going to the gym at odd hours. The phone records showed a number that appeared daily, sometimes multiple times a day. It was a Greek number. The calls had started 4 months ago, right around the time she developed her sudden interest in Mediterranean culture. I hired a private investigator, not because I wanted to catch her, because I wanted to be wrong. I wanted him to come back and tell me I was being paranoid, that the number belonged to the travel agency, that everything was innocent. He came back with photos. Vanessa and a man meeting at coffee shops, at parks, once at a hotel downtown. The man matched the profile photo from the travel agency website. Andreas, our future tour guide, was already very present in our lives. He was in Seattle. He'd been here for months. That's when I understood. This wasn't a vacation. This was the endgame of an affair. They'd planned this entire thing. The authentic Greek experience was their way of being together without suspicion. I was being invited along as cover, as the oblivious husband who would eventually be discarded. Most men would have confronted her right then. Canceled the trip, filed for divorce, but I'm not most men. I'm someone who sees the whole board before making a move. And I saw an opportunity that was too perfect to waste. I continued as if nothing was wrong. I smiled when Vanessa showed me the itinerary. I nodded enthusiastically when she talked about Andreas and his expertise. I even suggested we extend the trip by 2 days. She loved that idea. What Vanessa didn't know was that I'd made my own preparations. I'd contacted a lawyer and had divorce papers drawn up. I'd quietly moved half our joint savings into a personal account, which I was legally entitled to do. I'd documented everything the private investigator had found. I'd changed the passwords on our shared accounts. And I'd called the credit card company to have my name added as the primary account holder with sole authorization for our travel card. We flew to Athens on a Tuesday. 15-hour journey, and Vanessa was giddy the entire time. She kept checking her phone, smiling at messages she wouldn't show me. When we landed, I pretended to struggle with the Greek signs in the airport, asking her to help me figure out where to go. Andreas was waiting for us at arrivals. He was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-30s, athletic build. That carefully casual Mediterranean charm. He greeted us in English with a thick accent, then turned to Vanessa and greeted her in Greek. She responded in broken, heavily accented Greek, and they both laughed at her pronunciation. I said nothing. Just smiled like the dumb American husband, letting them have their little moment. The first day was Santorini. The white buildings, the blue domes, the stunning views. Andreas guided us through the island, and I played my role perfectly. I took photos of Vanessa. I asked basic questions about the history and culture, questions any tourist would ask. I watched as Andreas and Vanessa exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. That evening, at dinner on a terrace overlooking the caldera, Andreas excused himself to take a phone call. The moment he was out of earshot, Vanessa leaned forward and said in Greek, thinking I couldn't understand, 2 more days. Just 2 more days and we can stop pretending. I smiled at her and asked in English, "What's that, honey? Did you say something?" She switched back to English seamlessly. "Just saying how beautiful this is. I'm so glad we came." That night in our hotel room, I heard her texting. The soft tap of her fingers on the screen, the slight smile on her face. She thought I was asleep. I watched through barely open eyes as she typed message after message in Greek. The next morning, I checked her phone while she was in the shower. She'd gotten sloppy, confident in her deception. The messages were all there, plans for how they'd stage the breakup, how Andreas would comfort her after I returned home, how they'd wait a few months before going public with their relationship, how she'd already been applying for jobs in Athens. On our 3rd day, we took a ferry to Mykonos. Andreas sat next to Vanessa, and they conversed in Greek the entire journey. They thought they were being subtle, speaking in a language I couldn't understand. They talked about intimate things. About their relationship. About me, Andreas asked, "Does he suspect anything?" Vanessa laughed. "Nathan, no, he's completely oblivious. He trusts me completely. Honestly, it's almost too easy." Andreas replied, "Good. After we leave him in Athens, we'll have the villa to ourselves. Your husband will fly home alone, and you'll stay for your extended vacation. By the time he realizes you're not coming back, we'll have everything arranged." I sat 3 feet away, wearing headphones, watching videos on my phone, understanding every single word. That's when I decided. Athens was where it would end, not for me. For them, we spent 2 more days playing the happy vacation trio. I took photos. I laughed at Andreas's jokes that Vanessa had to translate for me. I played the devoted husband, the man who had no idea his world was about to be shattered. On our 6th night, we were in Athens, staying at a boutique hotel in Plaka. Andreas joined us for dinner, which had become the routine. Over wine and moussaka, they finalized their plan in Greek. Right in front of me, Andreas said, "Tomorrow night we'll tell him you're not feeling well. You'll say you need to rest. I'll offer to show him the nightlife, get him drunk, keep him distracted. When he's passed out, you'll leave, take your passport, your clothes, and meet me at my apartment. We'll leave him a note. By the time he wakes up, you'll be gone." Vanessa responded, "What about the credit card?" "He'll cancel it the moment he finds out." Andreas smiled. "We won't need it. Once you're at my place, we're done with American money. We'll use mine until you can access your accounts from here." I raised my glass. "To friendship," I said in English, looking directly at Andreas. "Thank you for showing us such an amazing time." They toasted with me, their faces masks of false warmth. That night, I made my move. While Vanessa slept, I went to the hotel business center. I accessed our bank accounts and moved every dollar from our joint accounts into my personal account. I canceled all joint credit cards except the one we'd been using for the trip. For that card, I set up alerts that would notify me of any charges, and I ensured I could cancel it remotely with a single phone call. I logged into Vanessa's email, which I'd had access to from our shared password manager, and found every communication with Andreas. I downloaded them all, backed them up to 3 different cloud services. I sent copies to my lawyer, then I drafted an email to Vanessa's employer. I didn't send it, just saved it as a draft. It detailed how she'd been conducting a personal relationship during work hours using company resources to coordinate an international affair. I knew her boss. He'd hired me to overhaul their systems 2 years ago. One email from me would end her career. Finally, I booked myself a first-class ticket home on the earliest flight the next evening. 1 seat, not 2. The next day, I played along perfectly. We visited the Acropolis. Andreas and Vanessa walked close together, their hands occasionally brushing. I took photos of ancient ruins, the devoted tourist husband documenting his trip. That evening, everything went exactly as Andreas had predicted because I let it. Vanessa claimed a headache. Andreas offered to take me out to experience authentic Athens nightlife. We went to 3 bars. I pretended to drink heavily, but I'd been switching my drinks with water when neither was looking. Andreas, meanwhile, got genuinely drunk, convinced he was successfully distracting the clueless husband. Around midnight, I told Andreas I needed to get back to check on Vanessa. He insisted on one more drink. I agreed, then excused myself to the bathroom. I didn't come back. I caught a cab directly to the hotel. I entered our room quietly. Vanessa was awake, frantically packing her suitcase. She froze when she saw me. "Nathan, I thought you'd be out longer. I'm just organizing things for tomorrow's early start." I smiled. "Don't let me interrupt." I went to my own suitcase, checked that my passport and essentials were there, then sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. Vanessa went back to packing, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. At 2:07 a.m., her phone buzzed. Andreas was asking where she was, saying he'd lost me, that she should leave now while she had the chance. At 2:14 a.m., she made her decision. She grabbed her suitcase, looked at me with what I can only describe as forced sadness, and said, "Nathan, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore, I'm leaving." I looked up from my phone, my face calm. "Okay," she blinked. "That's it, just okay. What would you like me to say, Vanessa? You've clearly made up your mind. I'm not going to beg you to stay." She seemed almost disappointed by my reaction. She'd probably imagined this moment as dramatic, cathartic. Instead, I was treating it like she'd announced she was going to the gym. "There's a note on the table," she said. "It explains everything." "I'm sure it does." She walked to the door, her suitcase rolling behind her. She paused, turned back. "I do care about you, Nathan. I hope you know that. This isn't about you. You're a good man. We grew apart. Have a safe trip, Vanessa." She left. I heard her footsteps in the hallway, heard the elevator ding. I walked to the window and watched her exit the hotel. Andreas was waiting across the street in a car. She got in. They drove away. I picked up the note she'd left. It was in English, carefully written to sound like she'd made this decision impulsively, overcome by sudden passion for a life she'd discovered in Greece. It painted Andreas as a catalyst for self-discovery, not as a long-term affair partner. It suggested she'd send for her things, that we'd work out the details later, that she hoped we could remain friends. I took a photo of the note for my lawyer, then set it aside. At 2:18 a.m., I called our credit card company. The representative who answered was patient as I explained that my wife and I had separated, that I needed to cancel the card immediately as I was the primary account holder. She processed it within minutes. The card Vanessa had been relying on, the one she thought would give them a buffer until they could sort out finances, was dead. Then I called my lawyer. Despite the time difference, he answered. I'd warned him this might happen tonight. I told him to proceed with filing the divorce papers first thing Monday morning. I authorized him to have her served at her parents' house in Portland, where I knew she'd eventually surface. At 3:00 a.m., my phone started ringing. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail at 3:04, another call. Voicemail at 3:07, a text. Nathan, the card isn't working. There must be some mistake. Can you call the company? I didn't respond. At 3:15, another call. Then another. Then Andreas called from his phone. I blocked his number. The messages became more frantic. Nathan, please, we're at a hotel and they won't let us check in. The card was declined. Please call them. Nathan, this isn't funny. We need that card. Nathan, answer your phone. At 4:00 a.m., she tried one more time. I know what you're doing. We can fix this. Just call me back and we can talk about this like adults. I responded with a single message. There's nothing to fix. You made your choice. I'm making mine. Check your email. I hit send on the email I drafted to her employer, copying HR and her direct supervisor. I detailed the affair, included timestamps of her communications during work hours, attached screenshots. I explained that I was notifying them as a courtesy, as she'd been misusing company resources and had plans to relocate internationally that would impact her current projects. Then I sent a second email, this one to Andreas's tour company. I included proof that he'd been conducting a personal relationship with a client that he'd been in Seattle months before our trip, that he'd misrepresented his services. I attached the communications between him and Vanessa. I noted that I'd be filing a formal complaint and expected a full refund of the fees we'd paid. At 6:00 a.m., I checked out of the hotel. The front desk asked if my wife would be joining me. I explained she'd left during the night, that I'd be checking out alone. They offered their condolences, assuming we'd had a fight. My flight was at 8:00 p.m., but I went to the airport immediately. I found a quiet lounge, ordered breakfast, and caught up on work emails. My phone continued buzzing with calls and messages from Vanessa. I turned off notifications. Around noon Athens time, my lawyer sent me a message. Her parents called. She's asking them to wire money. They're confused about what happened. I explained she'd left you in Greece for another man. Her mother hung up on her. I smiled at that. Vanessa's parents were traditional, conservative people who'd always treated me like a son. They'd hosted our wedding at their estate. Her father had given me a Rolex when I'd asked for their blessing to propose. They would not take this well. At 2:00 p.m., I received an email from the tour company. They were mortified, apologized profusely, offered a full refund plus an additional compensation amount. They'd terminated Andreas effective immediately. At 4:00 p.m., Vanessa sent one final message. "I'm coming to the airport. We need to talk face to face. You can't just leave me here." I responded, "I already left. I'm at the airport. My flight boards in 2 hours. You're welcome to book your own ticket home whenever you can afford one. The divorce papers will be waiting." At 8:00 p.m., I boarded my flight. First class, full flat bed, excellent wine service. I slept better than I had in months. I landed in Seattle 18 hours later. My lawyer met me at the airport with papers to sign. We'd moved quickly. Vanessa had no access to our joint accounts, no credit cards, no apartment. I'd already arranged for her belongings to be packed and sent to her parents' house. It took Vanessa 3 days to get home. She had to borrow money from a friend who lived in Athens, someone from her college days. That friend bought her an economy ticket on a flight with 2 connections. She landed in Portland, not Seattle, and had to face her parents immediately. 2 weeks later, I got a call from her number. It was her father. "Nathan, I need you to understand that we had no idea what Vanessa was doing. Her mother is devastated. I'm devastated. We raised her better than this." "I know you did, Richard. This isn't on you. She's saying you trapped her, that you knew about Andreas and deliberately let her humiliate herself, that you canceled the card to strand her. I found out about the affair 3 months ago. I gathered evidence. I protected myself financially. And yes, I canceled the card after she left me alone in a foreign country to run off with her affair partner. I won't apologize for that." There was a long pause. "I wouldn't apologize either, son. I'm calling because I want you to know that Vanessa will not be contesting the divorce. Her lawyer advised her that fighting you would only expose more of what she did. You'll have your divorce, and she's agreed to your terms." "I appreciate you telling me, Richard." "Nathan, for what it's worth, you were always the son I wished I'd had. I'm sorry my daughter didn't deserve you." That conversation stayed with me. Her own father had taken my side. That's how badly she'd miscalculated everything. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I kept the apartment, the car, and my retirement accounts. Vanessa got her personal belongings and her own retirement savings. We had no kids, no shared property beyond what we'd already divided. It was clean and quick. I heard through mutual friends that she tried to maintain the relationship with Andreas, but it fell apart within a month. Turns out an affair built on deception, and drama doesn't translate well into actual daily life. Andreas blamed her for his job loss. She blamed him for convincing her to leave me. They ended it badly, publicly, in a series of social media posts that our former mutual friends screenshotted and shared. Vanessa tried to reach out 4 months after the divorce was final. She sent a long email explaining that she'd made a mistake, that she'd been confused, that what we had was real and worth fighting for. She asked if we could meet for coffee. I didn't respond. She tried again 6 months later, this time saying she'd started therapy, that she understood now what she'd lost, that she'd do anything to fix things. I responded with 3 words. "I've moved on," and I had, not to another relationship immediately, but to a better version of my life. I got promoted at work. I bought a house with a view of the Sound. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. I traveled to places I'd always wanted to see, this time solo, answering to no one. About a year after the divorce, I was at a business conference in San Francisco. I was having drinks with colleagues when I saw her. Vanessa across the bar with a group of people I didn't recognize. She looked tired, older than our year apart should have aged her. She saw me at the same moment. Our eyes met. She started to stand, probably to come over, but I gave a slight shake of my head and turned back to my conversation. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her sit back down. One of my colleagues asked if I knew her. I said I used to, but not anymore. That was the last time I saw Vanessa in person. I heard later that she'd moved to Portland permanently, living near her parents, working a job that paid considerably less than her previous career. The email to her employer had done exactly what I'd known it would. She'd been fired quietly, and the circumstances had followed her, some people might think. What I did was cold, that I should have confronted her directly, given her a chance to explain, tried to work things out. But here's what those people don't understand. Vanessa had made her choices over months. She'd planned, schemed, and executed an elaborate deception. She'd invited me on a vacation designed to humiliate me, to discard me in a foreign country while she started her new life. I simply let her follow through with her plan, then responded with my own. The poetic justice of it all was that my hidden advantage, the fluent Greek she never knew I spoke, gave me complete information. I heard every plan, every cruel joke at my expense, every calculated manipulation. I knew exactly what was coming, and I prepared accordingly. Was it revenge? Maybe. But it was also protection. It was ensuring that when the inevitable happened, I wasn't left scrambling, hurt, and vulnerable. I was ahead of the situation at every step. The canceled credit card at 2:14 a.m. wasn't cruelty. It was the natural consequence of her leaving me. She'd abandoned me, ended our marriage in that moment. Why would I continue to financially support her and her affair partner? The card was in my name. She'd lost the right to use it the moment she walked out that door. Everything I did was legal. Everything was justified. And everything was necessary. People sometimes ask if I regret how it went down. If I wish I'd tried to save the marriage instead. The answer is no. You can't save something when the other person has already decided to destroy it. Vanessa had made her choice months before that night in Athens. I just made sure her choice came with appropriate consequences. Today, I'm 39. I'm seeing someone new, a woman I met through mutual friends. She's an architect, brilliant and genuine, with no hidden agendas. When I told her about Vanessa, about the trip to Greece, she asked if I'd ever go back. I said I would someday to reclaim those memories. Last month, we booked tickets. Just the two of us, no tour guides needed. I told her I speak Greek, that I'd lived there once, that I could show her the real Greece. She laughed and said she should have guessed I had secrets, but they're not secrets anymore. They're just parts of who I am, parts I'm no longer hiding. As for the lesson in all this, trust but verify. Love completely but protect yourself wisely. And if someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Vanessa showed me exactly who she was in those Greek conversations she thought I couldn't understand. I just had the courtesy to let her finish showing me before I responded. The last thing I'll say is this. Strength isn't about aggression or confrontation. Real strength is patience. It's gathering information, planning carefully, and executing decisively when the moment arrives. It's staying calm while chaos unfolds around you. It's knowing when to play your hand and when to hold your cards close. I played a long game. I stayed 3 steps ahead. And when the moment came at 2:14 a.m. in Athens, I made one phone call that changed everything. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just letting someone face the natural consequences of their own choices, while you walk away untouched, unbroken, and ready for whatever comes next. That's my story. That's how a dream vacation became a nightmare for the people who thought they were playing me. And that's how I walked away from betrayal, not as a victim, but as someone who'd been underestimated for the last time.